This is the most evil thing that humans do to animals. We actually believe that their babies belong to us. But all of a sudden, if a cow, pig, chicken, or turkey has a baby, people think the baby belongs to the meat industry, the dairy industry, the egg industry. Are you kidding me? We're stealing somebody else's baby? Back in '93, he invited me to go backstage to see the elephants. Now, who in the hell wouldn't want to see elephants? But I didn't know what was going on with the elephants backstage. And when I got backstage at the Michigan State Fairgrounds on 8 Mile and Woodward Avenue, it just stopped me dead in my tracks. I knew I was witnessing cruelty of animals being held against their will, being kept in chains or in cages, being forced to perform while somebody else profits off their labor. That's the definition of slavery. And when I was backstage, I saw monkeys screaming in cages, lions pacing pathetically. So that was the moment where my eyes were open. They didn't have any problem with the truth. The adults did. The parents did. You know, this whole nonsense out there. Parents like, I don't know if I should tell my kids the truth and show them a slaughterhouse video. No, you can't handle it. The kids are fine. So I definitely didn't start out this way, but the longer I became vegan, the more I confronted society and saw the real face of humankind, the more I became disenchanted with our species, the more I realized how disgusting and vile we really are and how we are a scourge. We're just the scourge of all scourges. Now, with this being said, I don't want to feel this way. Humans make me feel this way. I would love that if the adage, love conquers hate, I wish that adage were true. It's not a true adage.
Is something standing between you and your happiness? It was for me. I had to face my depression and the constant negative self-talk. Therapy helped me realize I deserve to be happy. That's why this podcast is called I Choose Health, because I made the choice to heal and I want to share that with you. As a gift to you, we've partnered with BetterHelp as our sponsor to help you start your own healing journey. We all face moments when life feels overwhelming, whether it's stress, anxiety, or just feeling stuck. Talking to someone can make a real difference. And that's where our sponsor BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp offers professional online therapy that's convenient, affordable, and entirely on your schedule. You can connect with a licensed therapist by video, phone, or even chat, whatever works best for you. Let our sponsor BetterHelp support you on your journey to better mental health. You can get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth. That's betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth for 10% off your first month. Take the first step toward feeling better today.
As a teenager, I decided to live better, so I gave up the meat, eggs, and cheddar. At 20 and 30, I wanted more, so I strengthened my mind and my core. Living a life that is healthier and wealthier because I choose health.
All right, guys, this is the I Choose Health podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Leslie. Now, when we talk about vegan activism, this guy is kind of like at a pinnacle for me because, I think about the first time I became aware of him was through one of our guests, which was actually Corey Sutton when I had him on last year.
When I think it was like 2011 or 2012, somewhere around those 2 years, when I actually went vegan, I was in public speaking, and we were learning about persuasive speaking at the time. And they brought in Gary Yourofsky, who is like a vegan activist. And if you've never heard about this guy, just Google him. You'll find him on YouTube. It's called The Best Speech Ever. I highly recommend any vegan or non-vegan who's listening to watch it. It's a really good speech. But he actually did that same exact speech that's on YouTube in my classroom live. And when I heard it, it definitely got my attention because it was something I never heard in my life.
And just the level of agency and the level of awareness to explain why we should be, one, advocating for the animals, why we should be going over to a plant-based or vegan diet, just a reasoning to me just makes sense to anyone that is one, listening, and two, has a heart. And so I want to introduce to the show today Gary Yourofsky. Welcome,
What's up,
Gary, to the I
Stefan?
Choose
What
Health
up, Doe, as
podcast.
they say in Detroit?
Man, that's amazing, man. And so, I want to really get to the heart of it. And what moment or experience initially radicalized you towards vegan activism?
Well, man, I have a crazy story. My stepfather was a clown in the Shrine Circus, and back in '93, he invited me to go backstage to see the elephants. Now, who in the hell wouldn't want to see elephants? But I didn't know what was going on with the elephants backstage. And when I got backstage at the Michigan State Fairgrounds on 8 Mile and Woodward Avenue, it just stopped me dead in my tracks. I knew I was witnessing cruelty. I knew I was witnessing slavery. If you think about this too, the circus is the perfect example of slavery. You have animals being held against their will, being kept in chains or in cages, being forced to perform while somebody else profits off their labor. That's the definition of slavery. And when I was backstage, I saw monkeys screaming in cages, lions pacing pathetically. The elephant that I saw had her front left foot and back right foot chained to the cement floor. I was with my girlfriend Wendy at the time, and I turned to Wendy and I said, "What the fuck is what the fuck is an elephant doing on 8 Mile and Woodward Avenue in Detroit anyways?" And she didn't know, and then we went out and saw the rest of the show until the bears came out wearing yellow tutus and riding tricycles. And I looked at Wendy and I said, "Let's get the hell out of here." So that was the moment where my eyes were open. But like most meat, dairy, and egg eaters, I was stubborn. I was as stubborn as they came, but I still knew something was wrong and things weren't adding up. I would always call myself an animal lover, but the truth is, as I look back now, I just love dogs and cats,
Right.
maybe squirrels and bunny rabbits, maybe dolphins and whales and capybaras and sloths. See, it's easy to love animals that you don't eat, when you don't wear their skin, when you don't exploit them. But what about the cows, the pigs, the chickens, the turkeys, the fish, the animals that we're eating and wearing and not giving two shits about? And for what reason? Because besides size, shape, and color, what is the difference between a cow and a dog, between a chicken and a cat? So I found this to be discriminatory behavior on my part and on everyone's part. And the word is speciesism. We all know what racism and sexism means when you think your race or your sex, your gender is better than the other one. Well, speciesism, same principle. We think the human species is superior than all the other species, and we have the right to exploit them, commodify them, turn them into shoes and food and clothing and sandwiches and research specimens.
Yeah.
So the more I thought about it, man, I realized I was on the wrong side of justice. I was on the oppressor's side, not the victim side. I was on the victimizer's side. I was a victimizer. And I looked in the mirror one day, shortly after that, and I'll tell you what, it's tough to look in the mirror and
Mm.
admit you're wrong and admit you've been doing something really evil to somebody else. And like every vegan, I was willing to say I'm sorry and I messed up. And all I can do from that moment on was apologize, make amends, and change the future. I can't take away the past. I wish I could, but I'm asking all meat, dairy, and egg eaters to do the same thing. Examine what's going on. Are there dead animals in your refrigerator? Yes, there is.
Mm.
Are there corpses in your body? Are you a walking graveyard of animals?
Mm.
Yes, you are. So why? Why would you subject animals to this horrible treatment? Why would you pay somebody else to steal the babies of cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys and then kill those babies and eat those babies? For what reason? And make amends, apologize, and move forward. I really don't know and don't understand why meat, dairy, and egg eaters are so defiant about this topic. That's what upsets me the most these days, their defiance. They're like 5-year-old brats most of the time. Like they've been told they've been doing something wrong, and then they go whine and scream about it and refuse to listen, refuse to think logically, refuse to put themselves in the victim's position. And that's really all you have to do. I'm sure you did it at one time. I know I did it. I put myself in the cow's position, in the pig's position, and I said, man, I wouldn't want to be treated like this. So why would I do that to somebody else? Basically, I decided to live by the golden rule, which is in every single religion, which is always ignored, though. As soon as you bring up animals, all of a sudden people don't want to apply the golden rule. All of a
Yep.
sudden people don't want to apply thou shalt not kill, the four most important words in the Bible and in all religious teachings. So veganism puts that all together, makes you and allows you to walk the talk that we're always talking. We're talking about we're good people, we're decent people, we're kind people, but then we do the meanest and cruelest things to the most innocent of all beings, beings that have never harmed us.
Yeah.
Cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys never violated us, never
Mm.
oppressed us. Why in the hell do we act so violently and viciously towards them and refuse to acknowledge their right to be free? That's
Yeah.
all it is, the right to freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It's so systematic because, we've been for such a long time, we've all grown up and a lot of us raised on eating meat, eating chicken, pork, whatever it is. And many of us are so comfortable with our life that we don't like to question the current system of the way things are. And so, yeah, well, people say, well, I'm always eating this, I'm always eating that. Why should I change any of that now? And then I have a medical system, a system that's telling me, well, I should be eating meat because I need to get protein or whatever it is. So there are so many facets, so many different levels of society where meat eating and flesh eating is encouraged over and over again, that society is so bombarded with it, with the imagery, with the ideology, that is so hard. And then the emotional aspect of it as well is so hard to lay aside these things. And I know for many people on the podcast, they've heard my story before. For me, it was when I became vegan, 18 years ago. I became vegan for myself, just for health, and I wasn't really focused on the animals. And when it became about the animals for me, it was actually probably about 5 to 10 years ago. I remember seeing this particular clip of a cow, and this cow you can just see it zoomed in on the eye, and this cow it's become very clear to this cow that it's about to die. And, you can just see a tear leave its eye. And I just was like, whoa, like I didn't realize, I knew there were sentient beings, but I didn't realize the extent to how sentient they were, how emotional they were, what they were feeling. The reality of death is creeping on them, just as it does for us as human beings. And so that's when it really became about the animals for me. And I'm like, well, like me just doing this for my health is somewhat kind of selfish. And it is really about the animals need to get out there and make people aware of, the abuse and the carnage that we continue to carry on as meat eaters and people who are continuing the system through the meat industry and through different facets. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said there in that sentiment, and, kind of speak to the system as how the system makes it really difficult for people to kind of cast aside their previous practices and beliefs, and makes it difficult for them to adopt maybe a vegan diet.
The lies run deep. These are the longest living lies. This is the biggest Holocaust, the most massive form of slavery that has ever existed. And yeah, at every angle in our society, everybody tells us to ignore animals, that animals don't count. They don't think. They don't feel. They were put here for human beings. If you look at religion, that's all they do is want to justify killing and
Mm.
cruelty in the name of God. And I always ask religious people, when are you going to love in the name of God instead of kill in the name of God? You turn on TV, that's all you get is commercials, McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, KFC, and you'll notice they're happy singing cartoon caricatures of animals in these videos, or the people in these commercials are happy and singing and dancing and playing, and they make it seem like it's fun, and animals want to be killed. Animals want to be sandwiched advantages. And then our parents, our moms and our dads tell us this. Now, I don't think it's malicious from our parents. I believe our parents were lied to by their parents and by their society at that time, and by their parents were lied to by their parents. And that cycle of violence has been going on for a long time. Our government promotes it. The medical industry obviously promotes it. Yeah, you can't get protein except from meat. Are you kidding me? In what century are you living in? There's an abundance of protein. In fact, it's the most abundant nutrient found in all foods, because you literally can't find one food on this planet that doesn't have protein in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about all those plant-based sources for all the bodybuilders out there, all the weightlifters, 1 cup of lentils is about 25 grams of protein. 1 can of beans, about 25 grams of protein. There's a new product on the market by Big Mountain. It's soy-free tofu made from fava beans. One package has 64 grams of protein. Nuts and seeds have protein. Fruits and vegetables have protein as well. So yeah, those lies run deep, and it's coming at us from every angle. We've been brainwashed. We've been programmed. We're all automatons. We're not thinking logically. And I can prove it, because when we were kids, we used to be in awe of animals. They used to make us laugh and giggle and smile. We had stuffed animals in our bed that we slept with. All of the TV shows, all the cartoons, all the movies, they were all about animals, talking animals. We loved animals. And even if for some reason we were afraid of animals when we were young, we didn't want anybody to kill them and harm them. We just wanted somebody to move them away from us, because we would have screamed and cried if somebody was mean to an animal in front of us. And I asked people during my famous Georgia Tech lecture, what in the hell happened along the way? How did we go from being in awe of animals to not giving a shit about animals, to trying to justify the cruelty that's done to them? So I do understand that people are programmed and brainwashed. They have blinders on. And that's why I spent, almost 20 years of my activism career lecturing and teaching. I went around, in the school system. I gave 2,660 lectures, because I wanted to tell people what was going on, because I realized they were probably just like I used to be, unaware and ignorant. And I wanted to tell them what was going on. And I had a lot of success. I was usually converting about 50% of the crowd. And at the very minimum, professors did surveys and said I was converting at least 15 to 20%, even on bad days. So I know there's a lot of people thirsting for the knowledge. But then there's also a lot of people that when you tell them what's going on, they still want to be blind. They still don't want to hear what's going on. They still want to justify the cruelty. And it's a very frustrating situation to be in when you tell somebody the truth and they just ignore it. And I'm going to tell a quick story. When I finally became vegan, I was vegetarian for a year. I didn't realize what was going on in the dairy and egg industries. And I was in Washington, D.C., and I was at a hotel waiting for this big conference to take place, and a group of people from Texas came in. Their shirts said Texans for Animal Rights. And I jumped up. I said, "Hey, I'm Gary from Michigan. How you guys doing?" They said, "Hey, Gary, where can we get a veggie burger?" I said, "Oh, man, the Hard Rock Cafe right down the street. I was just there. Great veggie burger." And they said, and this is not verbatim, they said, "But that's not a vegan burger." So, what do you think happens to mother cows when they can't give milk anymore? My response was, I didn't fight. I didn't say God says it was okay. I didn't say cows are stupid, they can't think. When somebody tells you something that you are unaware of, the proper response is to say, "Oh, I didn't realize," or, "Oh my God, oh man," not to fight and argue. And that's one of the worst traits of human beings, especially in this day and age. Everybody thinks that they're an expert, but nobody knows shit. But everybody's an expert in everything all of a sudden. Everybody knows everything. That's the downside of social media. Everybody thinks their opinion matters, their voice matters, that they know everything that's going on, and we don't. Now, I'm not making fun of people for being ignorant. I want to be clear. If you knew everything, you'd be God. So let's get
Yeah.
past that of knowing everything. It's time to listen to other people, especially the vegans of the world, the animal liberation activists who are fighting on behalf of all these victims. More than 80 billion land animals are killed every year by the meat, dairy, and egg industries. More than 2 trillion marine animals killed every year. This is a massive Holocaust. In fact, this is how we've learned to oppress and harm other groups of human beings so well. We started with the animals. We practiced on them. And then we became experts at slavery and mass murder and massacres. So this can help so many issues. But first and foremost, this is for the animals. And those health benefits you mentioned, Stefan, enjoy them. It's a great side
Yeah.
benefit for being ethical to the animals. Enjoy the kickback that you're going to get. Now, I don't want to guarantee perfect health because there's stress in the world. There's chemicals in the environment. People have insomnia. There are a lot of other issues, but you can eliminate the biggest form of diseases by taking meat, cheese, milk, and eggs out of your diet because they don't belong in the human body whatsoever. And then you also mentioned something too about the animals being aware, that tear coming down the cow's eye. I don't know why this is a shock to people, but animals are completely cognizant. They are aware of everything that's going on, especially at the slaughterhouse. They smell death and fear in the air. Fear, by the way, has a disgusting stench. I've been to a lot of slaughterhouses. I've been to auction houses. It stinks to high heaven. They know what's going on. They know what's next. They're not stupid. They see their friends taken away from them. They see their family members taken away from them. They hear the screams. They hear the cries. So these animals are being tormented in so many different ways. But I got to tell people, what happens at the slaughterhouse is probably the 5th worst thing that happens to them. It starts way earlier than that. And if you're a female animal, it starts with being raped. And how does the rape start? Well, actually, it starts by electro-ejaculating the male animals to obtain their sperm so they can shove that sperm into the vaginas of the female animals. So they're being raped to begin with. Then, after birth, their babies are being stolen. Now, I think this is the most evil thing that humans do to animals. We actually believe that their babies belong to us. Think about this. If there's a black woman, a white woman, Asian woman, Latino woman, any woman around the world, if they're pregnant and they give birth, everybody agrees it's their baby. But all of a sudden, if a cow, pig, chicken, or turkey has a baby, people think the baby belongs to the meat industry, the dairy industry, the egg industry, the meat eater. Are you kidding me? We're stealing somebody else's babies, and then we're killing those babies too on top of it. But we're also mutilating these animals along the way because most animals are put into a factory farm environment. So if you have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 chickens in one huge warehouse, they start fighting with each other. They're jockeying for position. Same thing humans would do if you put us in a horrible environment. Just look at the prison systems and all the alpha male, the beta male, that whole system that goes on. So they slice the beaks off of the hen. We actually sear their beaks off while they're fully conscious because then when they go to peck each other, they won't be damaging the flesh. Pigs literally have their teeth cut off after birth, or they take a hammer and just knock their teeth out. So when they go to bite each other in these horrible factory farmed environments, they can damage the flesh. We also cut off their tails. Cows and bulls have their horns cut off. It's called dehorning. There was a practice, I don't even know if it's still going on, but it was one of the most evil things I saw back in the 90s when I went vegan. It was called an ovariectomy. So animals that were being shipped to America from Mexico were actually stopped at the border. And you can see videos of this online. It's absolutely vile beyond belief. But they would put these animals in a stall, take a knife, slice their backside open, reach in and rip their ovaries out because there was a law that animals coming in from another country couldn't procreate. So that was their way of preventing procreation by ripping their ovaries out, fully conscious. Are you kidding me? Where do we even get off thinking we have the right to do this? I can't even believe humans have come up with the things we've come up with. I mean, this is beyond Stephen King. This is beyond any horror movie you could ever think of. And there's a lot of sick things going on in horror movies. And the things we do to animals is a real life horror movie that never ends 24 hours a day. So, man, they're so aware of this. And I don't know why we would subject cognizant beings to such horrible torture, especially when they've never done anything to us. We're supposed to be their protectors. We could choose to be their protectors. Instead, we choose to be their tormentors, their violators. And if anybody's out there believing in God, thinking that God says this is okay, if you believe that God is a slave master, a torturer, and a murderer of his animals, his babies, he wouldn't be God. He'd be the devil.
Mm.
There's a big difference. And the biggest trick the devil has ever performed in the history of the world is convincing people to do things in God's name that God would never condone. And this is the biggest trick, the biggest lie being pulled over on every single religious person in this world who thinks their God says that electro ejaculation, female rape, stealing babies, mutilation, and cutting off the heads of billions and trillions of animals is justified by God.
I've been hearing the rhetoric, um, I would say more so even from the Republican side. I've been hearing advice to eat more meat, eat more, pretty much overall, just eat more meat. And I've been just trying to understand why it is that now meat eating or not eating meat has become so politicized. I would say within the last year or two, it's become pretty heavily politicized. What do you think is at the heart of that? Is some of that possibly religious ideology, some political tactic? Like, what do you think is at the heart of that?
I think actually they know what the future is. They know where the future's going, where it's heading. This is their last ditch attempt to try to hang on to the meat, dairy, and egg industries. Now, I do want to be clear, though. I've been vegan for 29 years. I really haven't seen that much of a difference. I don't think it's really any worse nowadays than it was back in 96 when I started. But again, we have been making a lot of headway. There's a lot of meat, dairy, and egg eating, meat, dairy, and egg companies that have been buying up vegan companies over the years because they're also seeing the writing on the wall that in 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 years, whenever it's going to happen, that this world just cannot sustain animal-based agriculture and that people are becoming aware. And when the truth does come out, I do hope that cruelty cannot live forever. And I do hope that when the truth finally does come out and people start paying attention for real and start listening, that these industries will be the first ones to fall by the wayside. So yeah, it could be one last ditch attempt. I know there was a philosopher, I think Schopenhauer and maybe other philosophers talked about the 3 stages of truth. And the first stage is denial, then it's mockery, and then acceptance. So we're still in that denial state, although we've kind of approached the second stage of truth with all the mockery that's going on. Boy, let somebody find out you're a vegan, all of a sudden you're weak. People don't realize I'm vegan at the gym. Like, oh my Gary, you're a pretty big dude. Hey man, you lift some decent weight there. Oh, I'm vegan. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's why you're not lifting 500 pounds. I'm like, I've never lifted 500 pounds, even when I ate meat. What the fuck are you talking about? So, but it's so
Yeah.
bizarre. And as soon as somebody finds out you're vegan, all of a sudden, all the mockery comes in. Where do you get your protein? Or is that why you're bald? It was one of the dumbest things. I've been getting
Mm.
comments on my Instagram videos. Is that why you're bald? What? Are you telling me? First of all, 98% of the world eats meat. Only 2% of the vegans are bald. Joe Rogan is bald. Michael Jordan is bald. Like, what are you talking about? The Rock is bald. All of a sudden, it's the vegans that are bald because we're not eating meat. Um, we live in such a crazy world where people just, again, it goes back to people hate to admit they're wrong and they would rather attack the messenger instead of looking in the mirror and realizing the problem isn't me. The problem's not Gary. The problem is you. what you're doing, how you're living. And I'd love to disappear for the people that also say, oh, I wish Gary would shut up. I would love to shut up and go smoke a joint and watch Sports Center all day long, believe me. So when people stop tormenting and killing animals, I'd love to disappear. I would love to go away. But as long as people still think that they have a right to commodify somebody else, to turn them into sandwiches and shoes, man, I'm going to be in everyone's face. And so is the entire animal liberation movement. But I do want to say something else. It's not just a Republican problem. The left,
Right.
again, only 2% of the world is vegan. So what's weird to me is that people think, oh, this group doesn't get it or that group doesn't get it. Nobody gets it. Nobody gets
Yep.
it, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Nobody understands whether you're black or white, whether you're a man or a woman, straight or gay. Nobody seems to grasp this. And by the way, think about this. If you want to know which side of justice to always get on, it's always the side where there's very few people on. Look back throughout history, the majority of people have never once been on the right side of justice. Always been a
Yep.
small group of people trying to convince the larger group, hey, wait, what are you doing to these people? Stop, what are you doing to these beings over here? So that's how I know that vegans are on the right side. There's only 2% of us. But we are making headway. I do have faith, although it depends on what day you ask me how huge my faith is. There are days when I'm getting great comments on Instagram, or back in the day when students were going vegan, by the dozen. I'm like, we can do this. And then all of a sudden a bad lecture comes up. People want to scream and yell, turn it into a Jerry Springer show. And I'd say, well, I don't think we have a chance in hell to achieve this. I do think, I don't know, deep down, I always think that no lie can live forever. No injustice can last forever. But what's messed up for the victims is it goes on for too long. Right? It goes on for hundreds of years. It took 400 years to convince white people in America not to own blacks. I used to ask the crowd, especially when they were getting all jacked up against me. I said, "How come? Hold on a second. How come this wasn't a 5-minute discussion 400 years ago? How come when the first black person said, wait a second, why did you rape my wife? Why did you steal my baby? Why are you beating me and forcing me to work? How was the first white person not going, yeah, what am I doing?" We're so inherently blind and inherently evil for some reason. I don't understand why it takes so long to convince somebody else to stop being mean to somebody else. But what's sad about what I'm talking about is the problem is you have to convince the oppressor not to oppress. You have to convince the murderer not to murder. You have to convince the victimizer not to victimize. And this is why this task is so hard. If it were up to me and you, we'd have all the animals liberated today. But we have to go to the meat and dairy and egg eaters and say, hey, can you guys please stop doing this? And of course, their first response is, no, meat tastes good. No, God says it's okay. I need my protein. And it's like we got to go through all this whole battle. And what bothers me the most is well, there's so many things that bother me, but it's the lies that meat, dairy, and egg eaters wanna always say. I wish they would just look me right in the eye and say, I don't care. Honestly,
Yep.
I have nothing to say. My closest friend of 40 plus years is still not vegan, but he says to me, Gary, you're completely right about everything. I have no argument. I just don't care. Well, it sucks that he's so apathetic, but I have no cure for apathy. I wish I did, but I can fight those lies. So instead of just saying, oh, God says it's okay, I need my protein, animals don't think, oh, what about tomatoes? Don't they feel? All this dumb shit. Well, I wish they would just say, I don't give a shit. Because then, you know what? I wouldn't know what to say. I would have to go away. I'm like, well, I can't, I can't come back to I don't give a shit. But those lies, man, that these meat, dairy, and egg eaters love to spout off, it's just, it's brain melting, right? It's mind numbing. It's like, oh my God, what do I have to say to this?
And, I know even though this episode is about the animals, I often wonder, well, two things. So far, do you think is the biggest misconception about you? And then two, what risk has this been either to your professional life, your personal life, being this activist? Like, Has there been any threats made toward you? Have you faced situations like that?
I've had dozens of death threats against me. And back in the day when I was really active, when I wasn't just online, which is what I am nowadays, yeah, I used to have police escorts if I went somewhere to a meeting, to a government meeting. In fact, the Department of Natural Resources in Michigan, this is, I think, back in the 90s, they wanted to start killing deer in the metro parks. The parks were always off limits. It's a place also where humans go anyway. So just from, God forbid, from the speciesist standpoint of some human might get killed by a stray bullet, they would never allow hunting in the parks. And all of a sudden they wanted to. So I was fighting this tooth and nail. I got so many death threats. I had to have 12 Michigan State police officers escort me to a government meeting in order to give a speech, and had to clear out the restroom when I wanted to go to the bathroom and walk me to the car. This happened all the time, but it goes along with the territory. I knew I was being effective and never scared me, never frightened me. I knew that if people were going to go to that level, I must be making headway. I must be making people scared. So, yeah, I've had death threats. One of my best traits, though, is that I'm fearless. So I really don't care. I am armed these days too. So people, good luck if anybody actually wants to follow through on any of those threats. And I want people to know. So there's some controversy about me right now because I no longer will stand up and speak out on behalf of human rights. I'm solely animal rights. But people don't understand humans made me this way. I did not start this way. In fact, before I was even a vegan and an animal rights person, 1992, you can look this up on YouTube, punch in my name and punch in the words Declaration of Misrepresentation. I wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to be Eminem. And I had an anti-racist rap called the Declaration of Misrepresentation. I was fighting against racism before most of the people that are hating me nowadays were even born. So I definitely didn't start out this way, but the longer I became vegan, the more I confronted society and saw the real face of humankind. The more I became disenchanted with our species, the more I realized how disgusting and vile we really are, and how we are a scourge. We're just the scourge of all scourges. Now, with this being said, I don't want to feel this way. Humans make me feel this way. I would love that if the adage, love conquers hate, I wish that adage were true. It's not a true adage. It's not. I wish it were. If it were, we'd be vegan by now. Pythagoras was talking about veganism and animal liberation 2,600 years ago. We're not even close to it yet. So love does not conquer hate. Conquers a lot of hate. So the misconception too, and people need to understand that I'm really just a misanthrope. And what that means is I don't hate humans individually. I get along great individually with humans, everybody at the gym. I usually know everyone at whatever gym I'm going to. Once I'm there long enough, I talk to everybody. I'm nice to my neighbors. Collectively, it means I despise my species because we bring nothing to the table. And this is a harsh reality that meat, dairy, and egg eaters don't want to face. If you removed human beings from the planet, everything benefits without us. The air gets cleaner, the water gets cleaner, the animals thrive, the forest, the rainforests aren't being cut down anymore. Everything gets better without us. We are the definition of unspecial and unimportant. And I say that because everybody thinks humans are so special and so important. But this is who's important. Bees. We've been hearing about this for 10, 20 years, that the bees are disappearing. And if the bees disappear, the entire ecosystem will be affected. It might even collapse. That's how special bees are to the world. If you took ants off the planet, and ants, by the way, when they dig their little holes, they're hydrating, or they're aerating the earth. They serve an essential role that people don't realize what they do. That's how important ants are. If ants disappear, the ecosystem would collapse. Every other creature serves a purpose but us. Now, I don't think it has to be this way. I don't know when we strayed so horribly from living in harmony. but we certainly have not been living in harmony for thousands of years. We're just a warring species. We're just a violent, cruel species. Here's something that's always sticks with me. Man, I've given so many lectures. It's amazing I could remember bits and pieces like this. I was at East Carolina University, finished a lecture. There was an older gentleman in the crowd who was in his 60s. He's a former Marine. And he says to me during Q&A, Gary, I believe everything you say, man. I don't have an argument for anything you said. What makes you think we care? We're all a bunch of violent monkeys. And I'm like, oh my God, we're all a bunch of violent monkeys, he said. And I said, oh man, yeah, we certainly are. At least he was honest. Again, he didn't argue. So I didn't really know what to say to that comment, but it sticks with me and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that we choose violence over compassion, that we choose to be cruel instead of decent, that we don't choose to take care of the animals and the earth. We just choose to be destroyers and parasites. That's what we are, as parasites right now. I think if we do get back to Eden, it has to start with veganism. This is the basis of all ethics. This is the basis of living decent, of living in harmony with nature. So this is the most simplest thing that we can do is just change what we eat every single day, change what we wear every single day, change the forms of entertainment that really aren't forms of entertainment. Circuses, animals need to be out. Now keep in mind, we don't need to destroy the circus. Just take the animals out, have an all-human circus, acrobats, the guys in the motorcycle, riding around on those big balls. There's so many cool things about the circus. I don't know why people are entertained by an elephant standing on one foot or a lion jumping through a ring of fire. We need to destroy the rodeo. What kind of blatant form of cruelty is this? Sitting on top of a tormented animal for 7 seconds and people think that's some big accomplishment? Are you kidding? And people don't even realize, do you know why horses and bulls buck in the rodeo? It's called a flank strap. There's a rope tied around their waist area as tight as possible. They're kicking to try to get the strap off. And it's not even hidden. Next time it's on ESPN, just watch closely. Look at the waist area. In fact, when the idiot cowboy gets tossed off, you'll notice the guy on the horse rides up to the bull or the horse and he pulls the strap off. Animal stops kicking. So if we just change the forms of entertainment, change how we do medical research, where in the world do we get off thinking that we can torment millions of mice and bunny rabbits and dogs and cats and monkeys and birds and other creatures just so we can test and see what medicine will possibly do, or what diseases after we infect them with these mutated forms of diseases, what they're going to do in their bodies, especially when you can't even extrapolate that information from one species, make it relevant to the human being. You can't work on a mouse to help a monkey. You can't work on a cat to help a horse, and you certainly can't work on all those animals to help humans. So if we just change some basic things, man, we'd be on the path to Eden. But right now, this is hell. This is hell on earth. That old phrase, it's here right now. I don't. But when people say people are going to hell, we're already here. And if you don't think so, your blinders are on tightly. You're walking around completely oblivious to everything because that's all I see is hell for the animals.
As you were talking about the religious perspective that was impacting the way people approach, their behavior towards animals. And I know, I think you've said before that compassion isn't an option. It's a responsibility. Where would you say that your moral framework came from? Like if we were to peel the layers back on Gary Yourofsky, where does that moral framework come from?
Wow. Well, it probably started with my relationships with my dogs. And I think most people, at least in this part of the world, have had a dog or a cat companion. And if you look back to those relationships and how much you really did adore your dog, your cat, and then ask yourself, why did I love my dog and my cat so much, but hated cows, pigs, and chickens and turkeys so much? What? Well, talk about the disconnect. Because I look back at one of the few memories I have from my childhood. And I'm 55 now, so I've been around for a while. But I was around 5 or 6 years old, and now my parents didn't know better. We bought a dog from a pet shop. Please don't ever do that shit these days. Go to a shelter and rescue an animal. But we went to a pet shop, and they let all these dogs out into this area. And I remember Shadow jumping up to me, and I'm like, I want this dog. This is the dog. I still remember that moment, how happy I was. So Shadow gave me a lot of lessons in life about how to love and care for somebody that is relying on you to love and care for them. And then Bourbon and Brandy, my other dogs, and Rex and Doyle. So I think it was the dogs in my life that set a framework, but it wasn't until that circus scene where all of a sudden it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and things weren't making sense all of a sudden. In fact, I didn't mention it, but after I went to the circus, I mentioned what happened to my closest friend, Darren. And Darren says to me, if you think they mistreat elephants in the circus,
Mm.
you should see what they do to pigs in slaughterhouses. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I worked 6 blocks from Thornapple Valley in Detroit. I can tell you when they start killing them every morning, I smell death in the air. I said, you got to be kidding me. Call me tomorrow when they start killing them. He calls me at 8 o'clock. He said, I smell it. They just start killing them. I jump in my car, and 20, 30 minutes later, I'm on a slave ship. I'm at Auschwitz. I'm in hell. I don't know how else to describe the scene that I saw, but
Mhm.
there were 6 trucks loaded up with pigs, innocent beings waiting to be called in to the slaughterhouse floor. And I remember, I'm still a meat eater at this time, and I'm looking at these pigs, and you want to talk about those eyes you mentioned earlier with the cow and the tear. I stopped at this one truck, and my eyes completely locked with a pig who was looking out at me. And I swear his eyes were screaming at me, why are you doing this to us? In my head, I'm still a meat eater, tears rolling down my face. I say in my head, I don't know why we do this to you. And then I watched these trucks they get called in, and it was close enough to this area. It wasn't even like off limits. It wasn't this big, huge private area. Eastern Market area of Detroit. It's actually kind of an open area where there's there's restaurants, there's shops. So I was standing there as they called them in, and you want to talk about cognizance? Pigs and the other animals, they don't want to get off the truck.
Mm.
They know what's next. So these evil people would go on with pokers, with these electric prods, and they'd force them to walk down the chute to their own death. And if the pigs didn't walk quickly enough, they jammed it in their eyes, in their
Mm.
asshole, anything to make them move quickly.
Mm.
I mean, what in the world are we doing? Where do we get off thinking that we're the superior beings, that we're the most, knowledgeable beings? It's weird to me because technologically humans are brilliant, but
Mhm.
ethically we're parasites. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. And then, listen, I would take a non-technological species that was compassionate over
Mhm.
the current species that we have. Yeah, we are brilliant. I don't understand how telephones work, satellites. I don't understand TV. I don't understand anything technologically. I don't know how we do it. But we can't be kind to somebody else. We can't
Yeah.
let somebody else keep their own baby. We
Mm.
can't let somebody else live the life that they were meant to live and have sunlight on their skin. So, man, once I started seeing all that stuff and the slaughterhouses and the circuses, I started going behind the scenes of every circus and rodeo that came through Detroit. I broke into some research labs. I wanted to see firsthand what was going on because, like most people, I thought animal rights people could be exaggerating how horrible things were. It was always worse than I ever heard seeing it because when you watch a video, you don't smell death. You don't smell fear. When you're there, it is evil. In fact, the slaughterhouses that I went to, I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times I turn around like that. I thought the devil was behind me.
Mm.
The hair on the back of my neck would stand up at these places. It was just a disgusting place that was void of God. There is no God in any slaughterhouse. There is no God at any factory farm. There's no God at a vivisection animal experimentation laboratory. There's no God behind the scenes at a circus, at a rodeo. These places are just full of devilish demons, and you can feel it in the air. But my dog, so once I started thinking about the animals more and more stuff, and to answer your question, I thought back to everything that I would do to defend my dogs if somebody was mean to them. I mean, not only would I beat somebody up if I had to, I'd kill somebody if they tried to harm one of my dogs. And then I started to think, well, why wouldn't I do this to defend a cow, pig, a chicken? Just because I don't know them, I would let this happen to them. And that's what, see, that's what happens is these animals are out of sight, out of mind. We don't know them. In fact, do you know we intentionally keep these animals away from people? Do you know how many people have never actually met a cow, pig, or chicken, or turkey? Sometimes during Q&A, the people that were difficult would say things to me like, oh, Gary, chickens are stupid and turkeys are dumb. I'd say, oh, really? So I'm just curious, before I answer this, how many chickens and turkeys do you know? And they'd kind of smirk. I said, answer the question. In fact, here, multiple choice. Is it 0, 0, or 0? And they'd reluctantly say, yeah, okay, none. I said, oh, so you're making judgments on beings that you've never met? You want to talk about stereotyping somebody? Because I know hundreds of chickens and turkeys and cows and pigs from the sanctuaries that I've visited over the years, and they're nothing like you describe them to be. They're individuals, just like the dogs and cats that you agree are individuals, just like the whales or the dolphins that you think are so smart and intelligent. So are these other beings. You just never have given them a chance, but they're kept away from us intentionally. I mean, at Sasha Farm Animal Sanctuary over here in Manchester, Michigan, I would bring a lot of meat eaters there over the years. And a couple things come to mind. My one friend, Mark, I bring him up there and he starts hearing the noises the animals make. And he says to me, embarrassingly, Gary, I didn't think animals really made those noises. I thought that was just in cartoons. Man, cows really moo. Chickens really crow. I'm like, but I'm not mocking him. Look at the disconnect. Look at the blinders that society placed on this person and most people. He didn't even know that animals made the noises that they make, that animals spoke the languages that they actually speak, and that humans are too dumb to understand that language. We think we're so smart too. Who speaks chicken? I wish I could. And I care about them, but I'm too dumb to speak chicken and turkey and cow. I know they speak because they talk to each other. They communicate with each other. I would bring people up there too, and they would reluctantly not want to go up to the pigs and pet them. I say, go up and pet that pig. Oh, Gary, I don't know why. Because you eat that pig? Because you victimize that pig? And they look at me and say, I'm sorry. I'm like, what? Don't apologize to me. You go look in that, you go look in that pig's eyes. You apologize to him for what you're doing to him. Face the facts, man. That's the being that you're oppressing. And look at him. He's just lying there peacefully. Why don't you let him do this? But so society keeps these animals away from us. And of course, back to a point I made earlier, those commercials on TV. You don't see McDonald's and Burger King showing a slaughterhouse video. You don't see them showing electroejaculations and raping and stealing babies. Well, if they did, I don't think people would be too keen on eating Big Macs and Whoppers anymore. People wouldn't want a bucket of wings anymore. But we're so disconnected, Steph. I mean, people don't even see animals for who they are anymore, right? Nobody sees a chicken for a chicken. People see a bucket of wings when they look at a chicken. People look at a cow and see a briefcase, a pair of shoes, or a steak. Nobody even sees a cow for a cow anymore. You want to talk about discrimination. You want to talk about being objectified beyond belief. Nobody, in fact, the other day I was just talking with my fiance Carmen. We saw an article, a story online about a veterinarian helping an abused dog. And it was adorable. The dog was terrified. He was calm and patient with him. He gets over him and befriends him, pets him, and gets him to come out of this horrible state that he's in. And all the comments were, oh my God, it's so adorable. Oh, the dog is so precious. Oh my God, whoever was mean to him, I'll kill him. I'll kill him. Just give me 2 minutes with him. But then you look at a story about a pig or a cow or a chicken being abused, and the comments, oh, dinner, bacon, bucket of wings. Oh, well, grill
Yep.
them up, barbecue them. It's like, this is the brain melting thing that I've gone through for the last 29 years, by the way. I used to be a lot sharper than I am nowadays, but dealing with society for 29 years, my brain has melted. I really don't even know what we're arguing about anymore. I'm asking people, the vegans of the world are asking people not to rape, not to steal babies, not to cut somebody's head off, not to eat flesh, blood, veins, muscles, and tendons. And people are arguing? I'm like, when it happens, I'm like, what? What? I just asked you not to kill somebody else. I don't understand the argument. I didn't ask you to donate your money to somebody else, to vote a different way, to change your religion, to divorce your wife or your husband. I asked you not to kill somebody else. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all we're asking. It's such a simple ask on our part and such a huge defiant response from the victimizers. But that's why they're victimizers, and that's why they have trillions of victims. And I wish I knew the magic formula to make it stop, but I don't.
It's interesting, especially, kind of going back to your prospective rap career. I remember there was a line in a Biggie song where Biggie is kind of talking to this guy in a club, and he tells him, hey, please don't shoot up the place. And he says, well, why? And then he says, well, because there's somebody here tonight. I'm trying to make my baby my baby. And so someone posted about that online, and they were like, well, this is a problem with like Brooklyn, is the fact that Biggie even has to ask that question as to why should I ask this person to not shoot up the place, right? And it kind of comes back to this idea of like when we see the negative effects that killing animals has on our world and the impact that it has on them. It's just crazy to me that, the question is still even being asked as to why should I care about these animals, right? Why should I care about, mean to them if they're food to me? And, it's just interesting how culture has really conditioned us because I'm originally from Barbados. So when I was going to school here in New York and I'm telling people, I'm from Barbados, but I'm also vegan, they would always look at me like, how are you from the islands or how are you from the Caribbean and you're also vegan? And so it was always an interesting cognitive divide for them. Uh, but, I think for most of us growing up in the islands, we actually grew up on farms as well. My mom, who was born back in the 50s, grew up on a farm as well. She raised pigs, she raised chickens. My mom is also vegan as well. And so there was always that appreciation for I remember our neighbor who owned a cow, and I would always have an interesting connection with this cow because we had these trees that grew in our backyard. And in the Caribbean, we call this particular fruit breadfruit. And so I would take the breadfruit, and I'm 5, 6 years old, and I'm pushing it up to the mouth of the cow, and he's eating it, and I'm realizing I'm growing this connection with this cow, and so I think from a child I've always had this compassion and love for animals, and unfortunately, years after that, the same cow got sick. And I remember our neighbor who owned the cow, when the cow was sick, now you put it down. It was the lack of compassion that he had in putting this cow down. Like he literally lit this cow on fire. And I remember watching this as a kid. Like he lit this cow on fire and it really disturbed me significantly. And I just, I really wonder what morality that we think we're living under when we can do things like that. So it's just and this is 30 years ago. This is 30 years ago, and it's still hitting me as hard today as it did 30 years ago.
You sounded like me. Like when I was younger, I was always, even though I was a meat, dairy, and egg eater, I was always the guy who, when my friends would throw rocks at squirrels or birds, I'd be screaming and yelling and pushing them down to make them stop. Maybe some people have a compassionate gene. This is kind of my belief nowadays, that some people have a compassionate gene and most people don't. And that's why only a few get it and a lot of people don't. But something interesting, you brought up the whole Biggie line. To build on that, one of the best speeches I ever saw was the Reverend L. Sharpton at Rosa Parks' funeral. And he stood up and during the eulogy, he said he was scolding everybody for not voting. Now, it's a whole nother issue. I'm not sure that voting really has the effect that we think it has, but I know that for groups of people, Black people who had to fight for their right to vote, had to die for their right to vote, they obviously, are in a different position than a privileged white person is. I choose not to vote because I don't think my vote matters. He said to everybody, nobody should have to ask you to vote. Nobody should have to ask you and beg you to vote. Well, I built on that for some of my speeches after I heard him say that. Nobody should have to ask you to be kind to an animal. I shouldn't have to beg you not to kill somebody else. And that's the whole basis. Like, why does there even have to be a discussion? Or if there is a discussion, why should it be longer than 5 minutes? Once I explain what's going on, once we see what's going on, how do we not collectively apologize and make amends and say, okay, this has to end right now, instead of digging our feet in and saying, no, this is how it's going to be forever. And even if people out there think that animals don't count, animals don't matter, they're inferior. So as vegans, we're not asking you and begging you to think that animals are as important or more important. We're still going to beg you to leave them alone. They certainly don't deserve the cruelty that we inflict on them. And what about mercy? I did an Instagram video recently, and by the way, my Instagram account is at real Gary Yourofsky. But I did a post recently where I was asking people to show some mercy. Okay, I acquiesce everything you say. Okay, you're right. We're created in God's image. Animals don't count. Humans are important. So you've dominated them and oppressed them for thousands of years. How about just having some mercy on your victims now? Just some mercy. The same mercy that you would demand if you were in their situation, or whatever situation you're going to be in later in life on your deathbed. You're going to want mercy given unto you. But how can you expect to receive mercy if you can't even give it? And that's all the animal liberation movement is asking for. If you really want to break it down, be merciful to them. Let them go. Enough is enough already. It's time to stop. It's time to move on. It's time to evolve. It's time to evolve. And the most important part of evolution is the mind, its ethics, morality, dignity. And this is the best and most simplest way to evolve. Open up your circle of compassion to the animals that need it the most. And then we can figure out how to make the world a better place. Pythagoras talked about 2,600 years ago that as long as humans continue to be the ruthless destroyer of other beings, we will never know health or peace. As long as people massacre animals, they will kill each other. Those who sow the seed of murder and pain will never reap joy or love. This is not a new concept. There's so many people think, oh, vegans are new. No, we're not. And if you want to go back to biblical times, the Garden of Eden was vegan. Genesis 1:29, God's first dietary law was veganism. Now this goes way back. And if you want to go to evolution, we were gatherers long before we became hunters. Look up the University of Oxford studies on early human beings. They were frugivores. We were gathering way before the hunting came into play. So we just need to get back to the roots. We just need to get back to the basics. And the basics is, by the way, because I know you were talking about health, and there's a decent health angle to it, but take into consideration, eat whole foods, eat what's natural. Look at all the sickness in our societies. Look at all the drugstores in every street corner in America. It's amazing that meat, dairy, and egg eaters accuse vegans of being unhealthy when we don't live in a vegan world, and there's a drugstore in every street corner in America. Well, who's taking all the drugs? All the people that aren't vegan? What do you mean? This is for go to your mom and dad's house, open up their cabinet. There's one a day tablet. There's calcium supplements. There's iron supplements. This pill, that pill, this pill, that pill. 1 in 2 people die from heart disease. 33% of people get cancer. 20. The list is endless. Look around. Is everyone getting sick from the blueberries that nobody's eating? From the broccoli that people aren't eating? Eat whole foods, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, grains, legumes. And by the way, I'm very big these days on low fat. I think fat is the main cause of our diseases. So that automatically puts meat, dairy, and cheese, right? Meat, milk, cheese, and dairy, meat loaded with fat. Get that stuff out of your diet right away. But that also means eliminating oils. We use way too many oils in our society, and every single oil on the market is 14 grams of fat per tablespoon. Now, raise your hand if you know anybody that uses 1 tablespoon of oil. I mean, bullshit, right? People start, right? Turning over the oil bottle, there's going to be 70, 80, 100 grams of oil to start with. If you eat meat, you're going to add another 100 or 200 or 300 grams of fat throughout the day. And if you're a typical vegan, by the way, I'm going to be harsh on some vegans. So many vegans out there tell everybody to eat fruits and vegetables. Have you noticed this? And then vegans never eat fruits and vegetables. They live off of right. They're living off of all the mock meats and all the other stuff. So eat the fruits and vegetables that you're telling everybody else to eat. And grains, by the way, grains are a great source of complex carbohydrates, great source of protein, no fat. 1 cup of barley is about 25 grams of protein. I had that to start my day today with some green lentils. Went to the gym. I was squatting 225 today. I was doing some sumo squats. Did some hip thrust as well. Eat all the natural whole foods that are out there that don't cause diseases. Now, I want to be clear about this. You can still get sick from other sources. It's not going to be a complete immunity, but you can eliminate the biggest factor of all of our diseases, which is meat, cheese, milk, and eggs, by just becoming vegan and then doing veganism the right way. And exercise, of course, very important. Don't be lethargic in life. And I don't care if you're just walking. Go for a walk. I used to make fun of walking, Stefan. About 5 years ago, I bruised my ribs. And man, if you have bruised ribs, you really can't do anything at the gym. It's pretty tough. I mean, it's hard to stand up. I mean, when I sneezed one day, I was in tears. I'm like, oh my God. So I started walking. Somebody suggested it. And I said, what's the point? I went for a walk. And after 90 minutes, I was dripping sweat. And I was tired. I'm like, okay, I'm never going to make fun of walking again. So I still walk on my off days from the gym. So I don't care if it's lifting weights, which you should try to do, but be active, do something beneficial for yourself, walk, get outside, get some cardio, vascular exercise, and eat properly. But most importantly, and of course, I think I don't think the message has been lost, but this is still about the animals. It's about ethics first. But enjoy the kickbacks of good health that you're probably going to get by following this lifestyle.
It's interesting because one of the questions that I had prepared for you was to ask you to break down, let's say you had to speak to a 5-year-old about the ethical case for veganism. How would you do it? And then in the course of this, I said, you know what? Let's scrap that question, because when I speak to 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds about being ethical and loving the animals, they're way more practical and make way more sense than the adults do. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, it's
so
so true.
Yeah.
Listen, I used to speak to second, third, fourth graders every once in a while on my lecture tour. They didn't have any problem with the truth. The adults did. The parents did. This whole nonsense out there. Parents like, I don't know if I should tell my kids the truth and show them a slaughterhouse video. No, you can't handle it. The kids are fine. In fact, the kids are thirsting for the truth. And all we do is lie to them. Even if it's not about the animals, which is the worst thing, but Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, everything we tell kids is a lie in this world. And we wonder why when they grow up, they're so messed up. Everything's been a lie. They step into the real world and go, wait a second, what's going on over here? But the worst lie is that, that Ronald McDonald, this came out, that in the 60s and 70s, Ronald McDonald that went around the country and talked to school kids. When kids asked, where do hamburgers come from? He was instructed to say, hamburger patches. The lies star young.
Yeah.
Get this, I was in a second grade class once. Now, the only thing I change when I talk to kids, I don't change the message. I just have to change some of the words I use, right? They don't
Right.
know necessarily oppression, victimizer. So everything becomes good, bad, right, and wrong when I'm talking to kids. But the whole basis of the message of right and wrong is still there. So I was talking to kids. I was explaining what a vegan is and that I was vegan and that I loved animals. And one kid raises his hand and said, "Oh, Mr. Gary, I'm vegan too. I love animals." I said, "Oh my God, really? You're vegan?" I said, "Is anyone else vegan in here with cool vegan parents?" And everybody raised their hands. I said, "Oh, wait a second." I said, "Hold on a second. Did anybody see the movie Babe?" It's like, "I love Babe. I love Babe." Okay. Did anybody eat a hot dog recently? "Oh, I love hot dogs." And I said, "That's Babe. You ate Babe." And they and he, oh my God. And then the teacher in the back of the room, by the way, she actually shrieks, "Gary, you're not supposed to tell them." I go, "Wait, I can't tell them the truth? Really? I'm in trouble for speaking the truth? So if I came in and lied, I'd be a hero?" I don't understand. This society of ours rewards lying and condemns truth tellers. It boggles my mind that we can't talk about the truth. And listen, those kids should know everything about what goes on to the animals, from the rape and the baby stealing to the electroejaculations. They should also know everything about slavery in America. They should know everything about the Holocaust. I don't care which human victims of which Holocaust. They should know about sex slavery. They should know everything about all the evil shit in the world. But all we do is hide it from them under the false notion of, oh, they can't handle it. No, no. The longer I live, the more I realize kids can handle the truth. Adults can't.
You know, it's interesting, and I'm probably going to put a family member of mine on blast for a little bit, but I recently, my father's birthday, it was last week actually, and so I'm talking to this particular family member of mine, and, you know, my dad just hit 70, and so, you know, I said, this is amazing, you know, my dad is the only one of his siblings to make it to 70, right? His brother and sister before died in their 60s, and so she says to me, she said, he barely made it. So I'm like, what are you talking about? She then goes on to tell me that back in July of this year, that my father's pulse dropped to 37. And I was not aware of this. No one told me this. I didn't even know he was in the hospital. No one told me this. And, she was able to work with the hospital, and because she's also a traveling nurse herself, and she was able to get his help to get his pulse back up. But it's just this behavior of humans to hide and hide what is true for what reason. And I think the reason is clear, is that, human beings just want to continue to live that they know they should not be living. For some reason, living a life that is separated from the truth brings them pleasure. And so, I think it's really time for us as human beings to wake up and examine the things that we love, the things that we find pleasure in. Like, is it really in alignment with our values, or is it really out of whack with it? So as you were saying that, I was just reminded of that. And so I've just seen how the smarter that we've become in society, or the more expert dependent we've become, our smarts have increased and our emotional intelligence has decreased. And so it's just really unfortunate that that's where we are in society. But I think it's really important that people like you, people like myself, are trying to do that work, or really doing that work of making people aware, and making them painfully aware of this problem and why it's a serious problem, not just for the animals, but for our world in general.
Ignorance is bliss. And I got to tell you, every time over the years that I've had a disagreement with somebody, the first thing that goes through my mind is, I wish I didn't know. Now, I don't mean this. Feel me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't know because life was so much easier when I didn't care
Yep.
about anything except my little world. Because caring takes effort. I'll be honest, it takes a little extra effort to be vegan. Read the ingredient list, ask a question at the restaurant to make sure I'm getting a vegan meal. But I'm always willing to go out of my way now that my blinders have been taken off to make sure somebody else doesn't have to intentionally suffer and die for me because I don't think I'm that important at all. I don't think my life is more valuable than a cow, a pig, chicken, or a turkey's life. I do though. The first thing, man, I don't want to fight. It's tiring to fight. It's tiring to be hated. You know what's crazy, Stefan? When I wasn't vegan, I was 26 years not vegan. Now I'm 29 years vegan. When I was a meat, dairy, and egg eater, I was the shit. I was the life of the party. Everybody loved me. In high school, I was one of the only kids that could hang out with any group in the school. The preppies, the burnouts, the blacks, the Chaldeans. It didn't matter. Gary got along with everybody. I was part of every group. All of a sudden, Gary became vegan. Now all those people are like, wow, man, Gary's a dick. Well, what happened? Really?
Mm,
What did he do? He likes pigs. He's always speaking about chickens and turkeys and saving their life. Wait, what? So, like, you become vegan, you become awakened. All of a sudden, people want to hate you, which
mm-hmm.
is so bizarre. But people don't like others that don't fit into the crowd. But I got to tell this to everybody. If you're trying to fit into the crowd, you're looking at it the wrong way. Because the longer I live, the more I'm trying to fit out.
Yep.
I don't want to fit in. I want to fit out. Because whatever everybody's doing is always wrong, especially when it comes to social justice. But this is just normal. I mean, listen, casinos make money. Why? Because everybody's wrong. Everyone's going to bet the wrong team. Everyone's going to bet the wrong number, play the wrong hand. Everybody does is always wrong. Don't try to fit in, fit out. And I can tell a dad story too, by the way. So my dad, get this, when my dad was still alive, he was like every other family member of mine, every other friend. By the way, I've converted, they say, millions worldwide. Never converted one family or friend.
Yeah.
My father, though, was like everyone else, didn't want to try the food, didn't want to hear about it. So we stopped talking about it for years and years. One day, now my dad was 411 pounds at one. He had a bad knee, needed a knee replacement. The doctor said, Ron, there's no way I'm putting you under anesthetic in this condition. You need to lose some weight. And now my dad was a jokester too. And he says to the doctor, my son really wants me to go vegan. And the doc, to my surprise, says, you know what, Ron, your son doesn't have a bad idea. And my dad says, I thought you were going to be on my side. The doctor says, Ron, I am on your side. Do what your son says. So my dad did become vegan. Now, I didn't convert him, though. That was the doctor. He didn't listen to me at all, but all of a sudden the doctor says, well, get this. My dad, 411, in 1 year, he lost 189 pounds. Sitting on his fat ass watching Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Maury Povich, Jerry Springer. But instead of eating hot dogs and cheese all day long, when I showed up at his house, he'd have a bowl of tomatoes and green peppers. I mean, that was some vegan shit. I would walk in and I'm like, wait a second, you're eating tomatoes and green peppers for dinner? Like, man, that's like level 27 vegan. I'm not even doing that shit, really. But he wanted this knee replacement so badly, he lost 189. Now, just think if he could have exercised. His knee was so bad he couldn't even exercise and still lost 189 pounds. And
Mm,
another funny story about this, though, was before this episode where he went vegan, when I was really trying to get people to eat some plant-based foods and they wouldn't do it, I had to trick them. So I show up at my dad's house one day, and I'm a football junkie. I've been watching football my whole life. I'm looking forward to Saturday tomorrow already. College football we got coming up, Sunday pros. Me and my dad really shared that in life too. So I show up for Sunday football one day. I bring a bag of bagels, and I brought some tofu cream cheese, which, by the way, is still shit. Whatever tofu he makes is always great. It's full of fat. That's why it tastes great. It's not like it's healthy, but hey, neither is cream cheese, right? It tastes just like dairy cream cheese. So I take the lid off the tofu because it looks just like cream cheese. I set it on, set it on the counter with the bagels. I'm like, hey, Pops, come on, the games are starting. He waddles into the room, 411 pounds, grabs a bagel, smears on the tofu cream cheese, sits down. Now I'm bursting. I mean, I want to laugh. I want to tell him, but I told myself I'm not going to mention this until the second bagel. So he eats the first one. There's tofu cream cheese all over his lips, right? It's delicious. Halfway down the second one, I say, hey, Pops, you like the bagels and cream cheese today? I said, yeah, of course, man. I always love bagels and cream cheese. Why do you ask? I don't know. It's tofu cream cheese. Oh, well, what did you feed me? Oh, now it's gross. It was great a second ago. So meat, dairy, and egg eaters are also full of shit when they say, oh, it doesn't taste right. Bullshit. If people didn't tell you and we served you our best stuff, you wouldn't know the difference. And I say that for a reason. Our best stuff, not all plant-based food tastes great, but they act like all pizzas taste the same. All hamburgers are the same. Like there's no shitty pizza places. Okay, who are you trying to pull a fast one on? I used to eat this shit for 26 years. I didn't like every pizza joint. I like, oh, that pizza joint is great. Oh, that pizza place is great. Oh, that place makes good hamburgers. Oh, that place makes shitty hamburgers. Same thing with vegan food. There's good veggie burgers and there's bad ones. Good plant-based cream cheese and bad ones. But if we serve them all of our good shit, they wouldn't know the difference unless we told them. In fact, I think it was Impossible or Beyond Meat when it came out years ago. They went on the Today Show. Is that the one with Al Roker and the whole crew? So there's four of them. They're taste testing the Impossible or the Beyond Meat burgers next to cow flesh burgers. Everybody picks the Impossible or the Beyond Meat as the meat, the flesh. This is how good our stuff tastes. And for anybody who says, oh, it's Franken food, are you kidding me? These animals in the meat, dairy, and egg industries have been genetically modified for decades. You're all eating Franken food. And for anybody who says, oh, this mock meat is unhealthy, you act like meat, dairy, and eggs are healthy. What are you talking about? Talk about living in fantasy land. They act like the things they eat are healthy and that the vegan stuff, the mock meats, are unhealthy. Now, I'll be fair. If it's the mock meats and it's meat, dairy, and eggs, it's all unhealthy, but one causes no intentional exploitation. One does. So if that's the basis of figuring out what you're going to eat, well, then eat the one that doesn't cause intentional harm. I don't understand. I also think it's funny that the meat, dairy, and egg eaters eat flesh and blood and veins, muscles and tendons, eggs which come out of the asses of hens, secretions, milk that comes out of cow titties. All of a sudden, they consider themselves to be food gourmets. All of a sudden, they're worthy enough to tell me what tastes good. I used to make fun of them all the time. Boy, if somebody was wheeling a cart down the street right now, you'd run out like, oh my God, is it meat? Is it meat between two slices of bread? Holy shit, give me some. I used to see these people at 7-Eleven. When I was traveling for a living, I had to get up early to go to, morning lectures. I'd stop by 7-Eleven, grab an orange juice or something, bag of nuts, grab a banana, and I would see these guys at 7 in the morning, these construction workers, grabbing a bag of Doritos, Mountain Dew, and one of the hot dogs that's been on the grill for 48 hours. These are food gourmets? They want to tell me what tastes good, what doesn't taste good? You want to talk about living in fantasy land? All the meat, dairy, and egg eaters of the world have no fucking idea what they're talking about when it comes to quality food and what tastes good. And they want to tell the vegans what tastes good. We're the ones eating whole foods. We're the ones eating grains and lentils and beans and making these cool dishes, right? We're the ones creating fruits and vegetables taste delicious on their own. My God, you don't have to do anything to them. You want to talk about a simple diet for anybody that's looking for simplicity? Eat 30 bananas a day. There's 3,000 calories. Gives you everything you need. I did the frugivore thing for a while too. I'm trying to do it as much as I can. Eat an entire watermelon, eat 20 peaches, eat 30 nectarines. And I find it so odd that people want to eat one piece of fruit when they see fruit. They'll eat 10 pieces of pizza, They'll eat, 4 hamburgers and 2 hot dogs, 6 chicken breasts, 45 chicken wings. All of a sudden, they see a bunch of fruit. They're like, I'll just take 1 peach. And then they want to text me later on, Gary, I don't feel full when I eat vegan. I'm like, well, what did you have? Like, oh, I had a peach for lunch. You had 50 calories for lunch. You want to know why you don't feel right? What are you talking about? Eat massive amounts of fruit. Eat the stuff that's going to keep you going. And by the way, for anybody who thinks that, oh, the fruit, the sugar, that's not the same as a cookie, as a cupcake. When fruit has fiber with it, it is lovely for the human body. It is energy for your body. We are frugivores by nature. Eat massive amounts of fruit and vegetables as much as you can until you're filled up, and you will be satisfied. But if you're only going to eat 1 peach or 1 banana or, 1 little stalk of broccoli, yeah, you're not going to feel satisfied, not even a mouse on a wheel. So eat enough food to be satisfied when you're eating vegan.
I wonder what role does guilt and shame play in waking people up, or does it push them further away?
I think it works, Stefan, and I have proof. My whole speech, all my speeches, I put people in the victim's position. I called them victimizers, murderers, rapists. I told them they were taking part in the biggest Holocaust, the most massive amount of slavery that's ever existed. And it worked. In fact, that was the only thing that ever worked. The more I shamed them, the more I embarrassed them, the more I let them know how stupid they were being, the more they became vegan. For anybody who thinks that you're going to trick somebody into being vegan by being extra kind, and by the way, it wasn't that I wasn't kind. I think the kindest thing you can do is tell somebody the truth and call them out and tell them that they're acting like a fool. Right? I don't think there's anything cruel about it but for anybody who thinks it was harsh, and I do get this a lot from vegans. Oh, Gary, man, you're so harsh. What if you weren't so harsh? I'd always ask them, I'm curious, how many people have you converted with your style? Then they'd go silent, and then I'd say, 0 or 0. Stop sitting in a boardroom and thinking about how we should go about it and talk to the cat that went out there and confronted people. And I wasn't speaking to yoga groups. I wasn't speaking to the choir. I went to rural America. I used to speak at Beaufort Community College, Halifax Community College in rural North Carolina. I spoke at the University of Akron. I spoke at Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. I was speaking to people in the most brutally honest way. And this is also why the professors loved me. They used to say, Gary, man, you are not a politician, as advertised. We never met anybody so open and willing to say what they really feel and what they believe in. We have never seen anybody like this. And the students appreciated it too. And for the ones that didn't, I'm not here to say I reached everybody. Of course I didn't. I wish I did. But for the ones that didn't, I realized over the years it wasn't me. Well, in fact, I'll give you a moment that it really struck me that it wasn't me. University of Central Florida. I was always a good judge, by the way. When I walked into a classroom, I knew exactly who was listening, who wasn't, or who was going to listen. In my mind, I would be like, good, bad, on the fence, good, bad. Oh, he's trouble, she's trouble, but she's good. So as the lecture went on, I started focusing on those that were listening. So I walk into this classroom, there's about 40 students, and I got it pegged as a great class. And there's only a couple people that are going to be troublemakers. So Q&A starts. One guy says to me, Gary, you're up there all arrogant, condemning us, thinking you're all high and mighty. Who the hell do you think you are coming in here and acting like this? Nobody believes you. Nobody's going to listen and change. So I said, well, wait a second. I'm curious. It's very curious to me that you said that because that's not how I'm reading this room. But I'm a fair guy. No, you don't think I am. Let's take a vote. Let's be diplomatic. Does anybody feel the way this guy feels? 7 people raised their hand. I counted like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's interesting. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 40 people in this room. That means there's 33 people that don't feel the way you guys feel. So maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is you. And you. And I pointed to each of the seven. Said, you are the problem. You guys came in today unwilling to listen. You weren't ready for the message I delivered today. Other people were, and that's what it comes down to over the years as I analyze it. Certain people are ready and willing to listen, and certain people aren't, no matter how you present it. But I'll be fair. Listen, if you don't feel comfortable saying it's a Holocaust, saying it's slavery, saying the word rape, I don't care how you say it. Just explain what's going on and hold people accountable. But you're going to find out it doesn't matter what you say and how you say it. And the proof is too, look at your family and friends that don't become vegan, even though you lead by example. Another myth out there, I'll lead by example. It doesn't work for shit, leading by example. Are you kidding me? I've been leading by example for 29 years. Still don't have a friend or a family member that became vegan. It was always when I called people out, when I told them they were not walking the compassionate talk that they're always talking about. That's what worked. In fact, I had two students at University of Akron once, and they were acting like little 5-year-old kids when the lecture started giggling, talking. I walked out, stopped the speech, and I screamed, top of my lungs. I said, what is this? Or college? Shut the fuck up. In fact, you go sit over there, and you sit over there. Now, after the lecture ended, one of them, not both, it didn't work for both, but one said, he goes, man, nobody ever called me out like that. Thank you. Because that was the best speech I ever heard. And you know what? I am going vegan. And the other one, I looked over there and he was, and he walked out of the room. But so the only thing that saved that one, that made that effective was me calling them out. If I'd have let them giggle and laugh, both of them would have left without changing. At least I grabbed one of them. So be truthful. And listen, the truth is harsh. I wish there was a really nice way to talk about slavery and rape and murder and cutting people's heads off and stealing babies. I can't find a nice way to say it, but I will say it. I will speak up. I will speak out on behalf of the victims. For me, I always wanted to speak to people how I would want to be spoken for if I were in the animal's position. That's my best advice. You make sure whatever you're saying, is this how you would want it to be said? If you were about to be killed, if your mom or your dad were about to be killed, if your son or your daughter or your baby was about to be stolen and killed, say it that way, hold people accountable. It's the only thing that works. And for anybody who thinks otherwise, they're living in the boardroom. They've never confronted anybody. I talked to 60,000 meat, dairy, and egg eaters face to face. Face to face. I'll tell you what works. Again, and I'll tell you why the professors brought me in. It was the truthfulness. If I came in there like a politician and said things that people wanted to hear instead of what they needed to hear, I would only have one lecture in those classes. I had more than 90% of all my professors brought me back over and over again. I'm talking for my whole lecture career. Even when they changed schools, I get an email before the semester. Gary, I just switched over to Del Mar College in Corpus Christi. Can you come down there this semester? Hell yeah, I'll be down in Corpus Christi for sure. I would follow them around. And they always told me the only time their students ever became awakened and interested was after my lecture. They loved my talk for so many reasons, but it's being harsh. The truth is harsh, and you have to hold people accountable. Holding hands is never gonna make the world a better place. It's scolding people and telling them that they're doing something wrong. And listen, it's tough. I'm not saying you're gonna reach everybody, but right now, no one has shown me a better way than the way I did it and the way that I've been doing it. It's the only thing that reaches people and makes them snap out of their fantasy states. People are living in fantasy land. You got to snap them out of it. They're so lost in this fantasy world that I don't think there's any other way to reach them.
Just lastly, I just find it interesting as you were talking about professors who kept inviting you to the colleges to speak, because I feel like, I mean, it's been 13 years since I left college, but, I noticed that colleges don't seem to be, and not obviously not on the whole, But for the most part, a lot of colleges don't seem to be a place for speaking and presenting truth anymore. There's a lot of there's a lot of work to try to hide truth, especially within collegiate spaces. So I wonder, one, what impact you're having on professors that is leading them to have you come back and speak at the colleges. And then two, just speaking about your 2010 Georgia Tech lecture, it's considered to be one of the most influential vegan speeches ever. Did you know that it would be special like that in that moment?
I knew it was a kick-ass lecture. I gotta be, but I have to tell you, I was at that time. So in 2002, I basically decided to break away from the movement and do whatever I could do. And I'm going to encourage people to. It'd be wonderful to have a crowd behind you, have 500, 1,000, 10,000 people, 50 people at a protest, for crying out loud. But I wasn't liking how everybody else was doing activism. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can do. And that's when I decided to start my lecture tour and started sending out mass emails to try to get into classes. So I was just focusing on those students. That was my only and I wasn't just doing one talk a day. That was rare. I was doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 talks in one day. So that was my focus. These 25 students, these 50 students, these 500 students today, I'm going to reach whoever I can reach. I didn't realize how many people around the world ended up listening to my speech. Because again, everyone's reporting definitely hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people from this speech. I know collectively it's got more than 25 million views worldwide and all the different languages. It's been translated into more than 30. It was, I didn't know, man. I didn't know, but I knew, listen, so 2010, I was 8 years into lecturing full time. And I was averaging 200 lectures every year. So yeah, I was in the heart of my career. I was in the prime. I knew that was some tight shit. Uh, and in fact, at that time too, I was freestyling a lot of my speech as well. In fact, there were a couple moments in that speech when I talked about, I was driving to Georgia Tech that morning. I heard something on the radio about some type of food poisoning case where spinach was being blamed, but it was E. coli. And then I said, you know what, today I'm going to say something about spinach done shit. I didn't know what I was going to say, but that was the punchline. I would come up with a punchline and fill it in. And I got to that part and said, I heard something about E. coli. E. coli has 2 sources, human shit or animal shit. Spinach done shit. So it was a funny moment. I used a lot of sarcasm, a lot of sarcastic humor. So that was a freestyle. And after the slaughterhouse video, I ended up saying, right now on American highways, there are no less than 5,000 concentration camp trucks. That whole section was a freestyle. So I knew I was in my prime, and I'm not shocked that it has reached the amount of people. I'll tell you, because I stopped lecturing in end of 2014. I still haven't lectured again in a college classroom. And recently, I went to Germany a couple months ago and joined up with Anonymous for the Voiceless. And people were all telling me they were Gary vegans from that lecture. And they became Gary vegan activists too because of the lecture and all the things that I had done over the years. And before I went to Germany, I decided to watch the speech because I got to tell you, when I retired, man, I literally forgot everything I ever said. So I watched the Georgia Tech speech myself, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I was watching it, not knowing what I said, and I'm going, oh my God, that was some tight stuff. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I know why people are listening. I get it now. That's some great stuff. So at the moment, I knew I was reaching the students. I didn't know I was reaching a lot of the world. And as for professors bringing me in, I just mentioned, so I stopped lecturing in 2000 at the end of 14. I got to tell you, I'm not sure how it would have went nowadays, especially with COVID. Like when COVID hit, I said, could you imagine that all the schools closed down? I would have had to cancel my lecture tour. I do know that for any of my professors that are still teaching, they still show my speech, and it's still a highlight of their whole class. A lot of the professors that brought me in have retired by now, but there's still a decent handful that stay in contact and say, yeah, I'm still showing you speech, man. It's still relevant. So nowadays, I don't know how it would work. I mean, me personally, I think I could always get in. I think if I wanted to restart the lecture tour, I probably could. But I'm in a different chapter of my activism now. Right now, I'm comfortable doing podcast interviews like this one, and I'm comfortable doing Instagram videos. I don't plan for the future. I don't know what the future holds. And I want people to know this too, even back in the day. Don't plan too much. Don't get into meetings and have a discussion about the meeting and a meeting about the discussion and debate the discussion. Stop it. Go out and do something. I would just be active, and then I would analyze what I did afterward. I never planned for the future, and I'm not planning for the future of activism right now. I just know right now it's podcast and social media stuff. So who knows where this is going to lead me. But I'm back in action after being retired. I had to take a break. My brain was melting from dealing with society and I had to back away for a second. But I'm rejuvenated now and I got some cool messages. Again, check out my Instagram videos, and I hope people will pay attention and make a change, open up their circle of compassion, let the animals in, stop acting like an oppressor and a victimizer, and start acting like a decent human being and walk the compassionate talk. You brought it up earlier. We claim that we have all these ethical values, but we're not living it. And you can't just talk about being ethical. You have to become ethical. You can't talk about kindness. You have to deliver it. You have to walk the talk, and peace begins. Peace begins at the dinner table.
Well, Gary, this was amazing, man. And I definitely am excited to share this with our audience. I'm pretty sure they're excited to hear this as well. And as you were just sharing your socials, I know you were speaking about Instagram before. Just share where everyone can meet you and work with you. And yeah, just share all those with us now.
At real Gary Yourofsky. That's the main thing that I'm at. I'm on Facebook as well. And I think I'm on TikTok too. We're on TikTok. I don't even know the handles for that stuff. Threads.
Okay,
I'm on
we'll put it
Threads
up.
too. Carmen does all that stuff for me. I just speak. You just point me towards the camera and I start talking. I don't know anything about technology, but check out at real Gary Yourofsky. Oh, and my website, adapt.org. It's ADAPTT, two T's, adapt.org. It's actually being redone right now for the first time in 25 years. I'm ancient. By the way, I was around before the web. I was around before cell phones. Okay. So I'm a little behind the times when it comes to technology, but I got a really good friend, Ben, who's hooking up the web. It should be another, you know what? Probably by the end of the year, probably going to have a current website to fit with the times. Check out the website, check out at Real Gary Yourofsky, watch the videos, and most importantly, speak up, speak out if you are vegan, and if you're not, it's time. It's time. It's 2025. Stop acting like Neanderthals, cavemen, and cavewomen, and step into the 21st century and stop eating flesh, blood, veins, muscles, tendons, things that come out of the asses of hens, and secretions that ooze out of cow udders, and eat some real food for a change. Fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, grains and legumes.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Yourofsky, and this is me, Stephen Leslie, reminding you that this is the I Choose Health podcast, reminding you that choosing health is about choosing power, possibility, and purpose.
Peace.
Peace. Welcome to week 34 of 52 Choices. Sometimes your mind doesn't need a full break. It just needs a reset. This week's choice is simple. Create a mental reset routine you can use anytime stress builds up. It could be a 5-minute walk, one favorite song, or 60 seconds of slow breathing. Science is clear on this. A short walk increases blood flow to the brain and boosts problem-solving areas in the prefrontal cortex. Listening to music you enjoy activates the brain's reward pathways and lowers stress hormones like cortisol. And slow breath work directly calms your nervous system by activating the vagus nerve, which tells the brain you're safe. Your reset routine doesn't have to be long. It just has to be intentional. Choose one reset you'll practice this week. When your day feels heavy, press pause and use it. You'll be surprised how quickly your brain comes back online.